Excited to welcome my guy Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South, back on the show. Connor, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Hey, I want to ask you right off the top, when you seek out a player and you write a profile on said player and you go and you get quotes from all these people and you put it together and it comes out really nicely, and then he goes to Indianapolis and runs a 4.43, how does that feel?
That's a great question. I'll be honest, because I was talking to my SDS podcast co-host Chris Marler about this
Why'd you
yesterday.
do that? Why'd you talk to Marler?
That's a good question. You know, I find myself rooting for a guy like Justin Jefferson, and that's not just because, I spent a decent amount of time being able to write that story and talking to people like yourself and finding out more about the kid. You know, I find myself rooting for him because I like his story a lot. And I always say to people who question me when I tell them, I don't really have a team, but I like rooting for specific people. There are a lot of people in this business that I find myself rooting for. I find myself rooting for a guy like Joe Moorhead. I find myself rooting for a guy like Gene Chizik. And that's not just because they've been, nice and gracious enough to give me some of their time, but because I like their story. I like the body of work that they've put together, and I find myself wanting them to succeed. And Justin Jefferson is a guy that I find myself just thinking more and more, look, if there's anybody that I want to succeed in the NFL, it's probably him. And, this is somebody who goes into the combine knowing what everybody's kind of questioning about him with the straight line speed, and all he does is do exactly what we were asking him to do, which was show that he has that elite speed. I mean, he ran a better 40 than guys like Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb. Like that has to matter for all the criticism about, his athleticism and what he's going to be able to do at the next level. I just can't help but wonder that he has answered what question would anybody have about him at this point? So there's a little bit of a sense of pride knowing that I saw the work that he was putting in and knowing that he was able to hopefully make himself some money in Indianapolis.
Connor, is there something that you learned or something that you experienced or anything you can elaborate on as to why you would pull for a guy like Justin Jefferson?
I love the story of guys who are kind of overlooked as recruits, and, that's been well documented with him. But just somebody who has said, all right, this isn't just, I'm not just going to be one of those guys that comes out and vocalizes how frustrated I am with it. I'm going to actually put in the work. And that to me is the most impressive thing, is that he has done everything and more on the field to show that he was a mistake in terms of the way that he was valued as a recruit. And I just like hearing that he was willing to play all these different positions. And the story that Hester told me about, this is somebody who comes in as a true freshman, and he comes in late. And how does he get on the field? Well, he really kind of took on the blocking concepts that LSU had, and he was willing to say, I'll do whatever. Just get me on the field. I don't care if I'm only doing pass blocking. If I don't get any sort of action in terms of catches, carries, anything like that, that's fine. Just allow me to get on the field and show how hard I can work. And to me, that's what makes Justin Jefferson such an easy guy to root for. And the fact that everybody just seems to like him all the time. Like, watch him in the way that he interacts with his teammates. Everybody loves that guy. And Grant Delpit kept saying over and over when I talked to him, like, look, whatever team gets him in the NFL, he's going to be great in the locker room. Everybody just gets along with Justin Jefferson, and he's such an easy guy to root for. So, I do want to see him succeed at the next level for sure.
I think you're right about people rooting for him. And we saw the videos and the pictures of Joe Burrow kind of being his hype man. Like right before he goes out there and he runs the 40. Now, Joe Burrow didn't work out at the combine, but he made sure he was there for his receiver.
Absolutely. And this is somebody who I think if you even ask Joe Burrow, he'd be like, there were times where he made me look good. I mean, go back to that play that he made against Georgia where, it looks like Joe Burrow is just kind of running for his life and scrambling all over the place. And Justin Jefferson, one of the things he does so well is he just keeps moving downfield, and trying to just do anything he can to get open. And I kept pointing it out to Marler. I'm like, Justin Jefferson's open. And sure enough, he finds a way to connect with him downfield. And that's a play that kind of summed up LSU season and why these LSU receivers were so difficult to defend is because they were willing to keep the play alive and do things after the initial read wasn't necessarily there. And to me, that's what makes somebody like Justin Jefferson so valuable at the next level. And whoever gets him at the next level is going to get somebody that, in my opinion, is just built to have success.
Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South joining us here on Hanging with Hester. Connor, I was listening to the show that comes on before ours here, and they were suggesting that potentially some of these guys that are coming out of LSU this year into the draft may get a little bit of a bump because of the team that they were a part of, because of the culture of winning, because of some of the things that Ed Ogeron's talked about, making responsibility cool. Does any of that play in a draft selection process?
I think it can, and I think that a guy like Caleb on Jason is a good example of that. Somebody who I think, coming into this season, you had questions about some of the durability and how is he going to look against this elite competition. And sure enough, down the stretch, I mean, he really showed that he was capable of being a first-round type of guy. And, Patrick Queen, another example of a guy who really, really made himself some money, I thought, in the postseason. And it's unfortunate, what happened to him at the combine with the hamstring and whatnot. And hopefully he's going to be all right. But yeah, I mean, the more you see these guys and you see what they're able to do on a big stage, well, how would that not give them a bump? I mean, yeah, they're part of a great team, and it's easier to succeed when you have great players around you, I guess. But at the same time, I think that all of those guys kind of buying into that concept and really, having this belief the entire season that, look, we'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime, and it's not going to matter. We're still going to get ours, and that's what they all were able to do this past year. And if you're drafting somebody to be, first or second round guy, then I tend to think that would matter, and that's going to matter when they sit down with those kids in interviews and whatnot. And I'm not saying that all of them are bound to have success at the next level, but if they're a part of something like that, and they're a reason that LSU put together such a historic season, not just the national championship season, but one of the best seasons we've ever seen in college football history, yeah, I think that's got to matter.
Now, Connor, obviously you covered the entire SEC, so let's go over to the SEC East. Let's talk about the Georgia Bulldogs. This is the first time I'm getting a chance to catch up with you since Scott Cochran was hired as a special teams coordinator. But I want to go over the entire staff because it seems like Georgia realizes that they are in the window to win a championship, but it's closing. And the fact that you've got Todd Monken now as offensive coordinator. Now James Coley's at Texas A&M. You've got Scott Cochran, a lifetime strength coach, coming to be your special teams coordinator. Sam Pittman's now at Arkansas. Matt Luke's now your offensive line coach. It really seems like Georgia, and they go get Jamie Newman from Wake Forest. Seems like they're going all in with this team in this year.
It was an absolutely pivotal season for Kirby Smart. This offseason, I should say. Extremely important for him to decide, do I want to be stubborn or do I want to recognize that tweaks need to be made in order for us to win a championship? Because if Georgia had gone out there and really gone toe-to-toe with LSU for 60 minutes, I think we're having a different conversation about this team right now. But I tend to think that being there and watching his team just get absolutely destroyed and not have a chance in that game, I think reality finally set in for Kirby Smart of, look, I've got to make some changes because my way isn't necessarily working. I've got to be willing to shake things up offensively. I've got to be able to replace my play caller in James Coley and recognize that this just didn't work. And I've got to be willing to go out there and do something that hasn't been done at Georgia and go after somebody that's going to bring in the air raid offense, bring in this offense into the 21st century. That was important for him to be able to do. And how do you go out and replace your best recruiter in Sam Pittman? You go out and you get somebody like Matt Luke, who has a lot of energy and is extremely motivated to want to be able to show that he is still an elite assistant coach. And I think that that's the overall theme and why Scott Cochran was brought in. Kirby Smart has recognized that he needs an extra edge because it's not good enough to just have these five-star guys out there and assume that it's all going to work out. He saw what a national championship team really looks like against LSU, and I think he realized that he's a little bit further away from that than he thought, despite the fact that the talent is there. And maybe having all that turnover on the offensive side of the ball especially kind of allowed that reality to set in. But I give Kirby Smart credit because even if he doesn't beat Florida this year, and even if they don't make it a fourth straight SEC East title, I don't think it's going to be from a lack of stubbornness, and that's not something that was necessarily guaranteed going into the offseason.
One guy that reluctantly made that switch was Nick Saban and brought in Lane Kiffin and decided we're going to go score a bunch of points because that's what you got to do. And now that Scott Cochran's left, the staff change is just constant every single year with him. There's a little bit of a growing narrative that there may be a chink in the armor over there in Tuscaloosa. Do you buy any of that at all?
No, and I think it comes back to what Georgia was able to offer Scott Cochran. It was something that Alabama couldn't do. I mean, Alabama did not have an on-field assistant job available, and that's what Scott Cochran wanted to do. Give Kirby Smart credit for recognizing that he finally had something to offer that Alabama couldn't really come back with. It was different than when Kirby tried to get Scott Cochran to be his strength coach back at the end of the 2015 season when he first started off at Georgia. And I think that this is kind of I don't necessarily think that this is like a product of Saban not being able to retain his assistants. I mean, look at all of his assistants. How many of them have actually left for lateral jobs? They're head coaches in the SEC, and they've moved on to bigger and better things. That's what tends to happen at a place like Alabama. So, yeah, I think that, Georgia is doing everything it can to try and get every last advantage, but I don't think that this is necessarily a sign of Alabama's weakness. I think that people that are predicting that just because they don't have Scott Cochran, they're all of a sudden going to stop, competing for national championships. I think that's way too premature. I think you're underestimating, who I believe is the greatest coach of all time if you're doing that. I'm not writing off Alabama anytime soon, and they very well could be the preseason favorite to win the SEC come media days.
All right, he is Connor O'Gara, does a great job over at Saturday Down South. Good enough to join us here on a Tuesday. Connor, appreciate the time as always.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
All right, there he is, Connor O'Gara.